Hi, I'm Mike Coleman, a developer advocate here at Google Cloud. In this video, I want to walk you through how you can use Google Cloud's Migrate for Anthos to move some of your existing Windows workloads from virtual machines to containers in just a few steps. This video builds on an earlier one, introducing Migrate for Anthos. If you haven't checked that video out yet, definitely go do so, as this one assumes you perform the prerequisites we outlined there. At the end of the last video, we had set up our service accounts, enabled the necessary APIs, and created a processing cluster. Before we can do the actual migration, we need to complete a couple of Windows-specific prerequisites. We need to add a Windows node pool to our processing cluster and ensure we have a Windows build VM. We need the node pool to ensure that we can analyze Windows applications. And unlike with Linux applications, there isn't an automated container build step with Windows apps. Migrate for Anthos will create a Docker file, but you'll need a VM on which you can do the actual Docker build, as well as push the resulting image up to the Google Container Registry. So let's set both of those up. I've logged into the Google Cloud console and I'm ready to get started. So I'll click on Processing Cluster. I'll go ahead and add the node pool. We're going to go with one node. So let's click that there. Come over here. We're going to change this to the Windows semi-annual channel release. So we'll click Make Changes. I want to come down here and I want to use an N1 standard 4 as my machine for the node pool. And we'll come down, and then for security, I want to make sure that I have full platform access. And we'll click that, and then we'll click Create. And that will add the node pool. So next thing I want to do is I want to add the machine that I'll use to build my Docker images. So we're going to come up over here and we're going to click on Compute Engine, Virtual Machine Instances. We'll do Create Instance. We'll call the machine WinBuild1. We're going to put it in the US West 2A region. We're going to use an N1 standard 4, and we'll use Windows Server 1909 Data Center Edition. We want to come down here and ensure we have full platform scope again, and we'll click Create, and that will go off and create our build machine. With those additional prerequisites set up, let's jump into using Migrate for Anthos to migrate a Windows application. As a brief recap, Migrate for Anthos has three primary components. The first is the discovery tool, which assesses how successful a migration of a given application might be. Next is the processing cluster, a Kubernetes cluster that is used to examine the source VM and create the migration plan, as well as execute the actual migration. And finally, MigCTL, a command line tool like kubectl for interacting with the processing cluster. We'll do most of our work in the console today, but I will show you a bit of MigCTL. And again, to quickly recap, a migration generally consists of the following steps: creating a Google Cloud project, setting up service accounts, and enabling the appropriate APIs, creating a migration processing cluster and a build VM in the case of Windows, choosing and qualifying your workload, defining your migration source, creating a migration plan, and adjusting the migration plan to ensure it meets your needs, creating the deployment artifacts, and deploying the newly containerized application. We now have covered the first two items, so let's jump into how you can choose the right application. The first thing to consider is which operating systems, IIS, and .NET versions can be migrated. We migrate Microsoft Windows Server 2008 R2 or higher, Microsoft IIS 7 or higher web applications, and ASP.NET and .NET Framework versions 3.5 or higher. It's important to note that after migration, the resulting container will run Windows Server version 1909. In addition to specific versions of the operating system or app stack, the following application characteristics make them unsuitable for migration: applications with dependencies on GPUs or TPUs, applications with low-level networking requirements, desktop, RDP, and VDI applications, and applications with bring-your-own licensing. In order to help determine if an application is a good fit, we have the Application Discovery tool. The tool outputs a zip file that indicates whether or not the Windows VM is a potential fit for migration. The name of the file indicates the results. The zip file includes multiple files with information on the operating system settings, IIS, ODBC config, and the global assembly cache. I'm not going to go into the zip file contents in depth and would encourage you to check out the docs if you need more information. Let's take a look at the migration tool in action. But before we do that, I want to give you an overview of the application we'll be migrating. This is a simple ASP.NET application. It's got this web front end running on IIS that connects back to a Cloud SQL instance. So if I click on Courses, You can see a bunch of courses come up. Those are being pulled out of the Cloud SQL database. The virtual machine is right here. It's called Symbol University, and that's what we're going to migrate. I've already set up an RDP session into that box. So we'll move into that now. And I've installed the Migrate for Anthos migration tool. You can see it right here, collectinfo.exe. So I'll hit enter and we'll run that tool. It's going to go through, it's going to collect a bunch of system information. This is going to take a little bit. So I'm going to fast forward the video and I'll rejoin you in a second. So the tool is finished. And if we look at the file name here, it doesn't say no fit, which means we actually do have a fit. So our application is good to go and should be an easy migration. We have completed our prerequisites and our application is a good fit. So at this point, we're ready to go ahead and create our migration source. Before we start creating the actual migration, I just wanted to review a couple of points. First, a Windows instance can only be migrated from a compute engine instance. So that's what we've got going on here. We've got Symbol University on a compute engine VM. The second thing is you cannot migrate a VM until you stop it. So I'm going to come over here to Symbol University. I'm going to select it and I'm going to click stop. With the VM stopped, I can now go to Migrate to Containers here in the menu and start the migration process. We added our processing cluster earlier. So here it is. It's in the UI. Now we're going to add a migration source. So I'm going to click Add Source. I'm going to select that processing cluster. Click Next. Give it a name, Windows Migration Source. It's going to come off Compute Engine. Click Next. And now we're going to create a service account. So we can have this done automatically for us. The service account is going to have the viewer and the storage admin roles assigned to it. So we'll go ahead and click Next and Add Source. And that will add our migration source. The source is now ready. It can handle Windows and Linux workloads. So let's create the actual migration. Click Create Migration. Come in here, give the migration a name. We'll call it Windows Migration. Select the source that we just created from the dropdown. Select the operating system as Windows, and then type in the name of the virtual machine that we're going to migrate, which was Symbol University. We'll come down here and we'll click Create Migration. That's going to start the creation of the migration plan, and that's going to take a few seconds. So let me go ahead and fast forward the video and I'll rejoin you when that's done. Okay, the migration plan has been generated, and the next step here would be to review and edit that migration plan. So we come in and we take a look at it. We're not actually going to edit it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I'll just point out some highlights. You can see here we're running a .NET 4.5 Classic application. Here's the web root directory. Information like that, port 80. So all of that looks good. So let's go ahead and save that and generate our artifacts. Now this is going to go out and create our Docker file. Again, this is going to take a couple seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and I'll rejoin you when it's finished. The artifacts have been generated, and those are actually stored in a Google Cloud Storage bucket. And there's a couple different ways you could get at them. You could go to the bucket directly, or you can actually use migctl to give you the location and then copy the file down. And that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to open up a Cloud Shell, and I'm going to issue that migctl get artifacts command and point it at the migration we just did. And that's going to give me the command that I need to run. So I'm going to copy that command, gsutil cp, gsutil copy, and we're going to run that in our Windows build machine where we're going to build our Docker image. So let's run that copy command, and that's going to bring down the artifacts.zip file. So it's been copied. Let's look at the directory and make sure it's there. Clear the screen, and we'll do a dir, and there's our artifacts file. So let's expand that archive to get to the Docker file. So expand archive, artifacts.zip, hit enter, the archive will get expanded out, and we will have our Docker file. All right, let's clear the screen. Let's take a look at that artifacts directory to make sure we got our Docker file. So do the directory, and there's the Docker file. So now let's issue our Docker build command and tag it so it can be pushed up to Google Container Registry after the build is finished. So we'll go ahead and get that build done. There it is. It's been tagged and ready to get pushed up to the container registry. So let's do that next. So we'll clear the screen. And we'll issue the Docker push command, and that will push it up to Google Container Registry. This is going to take a few seconds, so I'm going to fast forward the video and rejoin you when it's done. As that gets pushed up to Container Registry, the next thing to do is to actually deploy it to our production cluster. So I've got two clusters, a processing cluster and a production cluster. And I'm going to go into Cloud Shell and I'm going to log into my production cluster. And then to make sure I am on the right cluster, I'm going to do a get nodes and make sure that I see all the nodes of my production cluster, which I do. So now let's take a look at our deployment YAML, and you can see nothing special here. I'm deploying that container registry image that I pushed up earlier. And so let's go ahead and do that. kubectl apply -f symbol deployment.yaml will create my Kubernetes deployment. So give that a minute to settle down, and then we'll check the status here. Clear the screen, and let's check and see if our pods are there. And there's our pod. Check our deployments. And the deployment is there. Now let's go ahead and expose that deployment behind a load balancer. This will take a couple seconds. I'm going to pause the video and I'll rejoin you when it's up and running. All right, let's do a kubectl get services, and that will list out the IP address of our load balancer. So we're going to grab that IP address. We're going to come up here into Chrome and open a new tab, paste in that address, click there, paste the address in, and that will open the Symbol University website. So let's hit enter. There's the website. Let's click courses. We're still connected to our database. And if I go back into Google Cloud Platform and I look at the VM instance, I'll see that it's still stopped, meaning that I am in fact serving my application now off of the Kubernetes cluster out of that container. So there you have it. In this video, you learned about using Migrate for Anthos to move Windows workloads into containers, including how to assess your application, create the migration plan, execute the migration plan, and deploy your newly containerized application. Be sure to like and subscribe because we'll be posting subsequent videos in this series to cover topics such as best practices for evaluating your applications, how to migrate Linux workloads, and more. And to get started on Migrate for Anthos today, visit cloud.google.com/migrate/Anthos.